This episode of the Pain Education Corner is sponsored by the Comella Foundation. The Comella Foundation is committed to relieving pain naturally using osteopathic healing principles. Here at the Comella Foundation, we envision a world where people achieve their maximum potential by being empowered with knowledge and skills to heal themselves and others. This information is to be used for educational purposes only and not to be construed as medical advice. If you have any questions or concerns, please consult a licensed healthcare professional. Hello, it's Bill, the knee pain guru. Welcome to the Pain Education Podcast brought to you by the Comella Foundation. Today we have a special guest. His name is Randy Johnston, and he has built for the Comella Foundation a machine that is called a Multiwave Oscillator. And I'm excited about it. I'm not going to be able to explain it. And that's why we brought Randy on today to share his background and what exactly we're going to be offering here. So welcome, Randy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So where do you want to start?
Well, share your background. Like, what do you do?
Well, I'm an industrial engineer by trade, and my strong suit is electronics. I'm a ham operator, and I've got multiple repeaters in the Asheville area that are well known. And let's see what else. I have a degree in electronics. I have a degree in industrial engineering. I've got drafting background in electronics, Air Force, the electronics there, communications. So I've been in radio and communications and dealing with frequency management or whatever over my entire lifetime since I was about, I guess, 18 or 20. And let's see, I come from a little town in eastern part of North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And let's see, I was raised on a farm, so I'm familiar with all that. And so the Multiwave Oscillator was a device that a friend of mine, in fact, my mentor, Cameron Jensen, brought to my attention, some 10 years ago. And after I read the book he gave me, I started looking at it and I said, oh, we can build this. I can build this. And so we started collecting the materials to build it and made it happen. And I built several of them. I got one in Australia and different ones around different places around the country. And a multi-wave oscillator is exactly what it says it is. It's a device that generates multiple frequencies simultaneously, mm-hmm. and transmits them over a antenna system that is based on the golden ratio. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that's a buzzword that everybody will kind of understand.
Okay.
But if you stop and look at the frequencies that it's generating, and you go back and you look at different things. Let me back up just a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. Part of the history, the multi-wave oscillator was developed back in 1923, I believe it was, by a man named George Lakowski. And he built the first ones, and he developed it and perfected it. And I'm sure his was a little bit more powerful than the one that I built. But he took them around to different hospitals and had them using it and so forth, and was having good results. His initial testing was done with geraniums, flowers. He would take geraniums and inject them with a cancer, and that cancer would start growing. And as it did, he would take the geraniums and have them in one area, of course, and he would separate them out, and he'd take part of them and expose them to a multi-wave oscillator, and the other part he did not. And over a period of 30 to 45 days, those plants that were being exposed, he noticed were growing profusely. So was the cancer that he injected it with. But after about 30 days, the cancer started dying. And so he was, questioning why are the cancer dying? And what he finally discovered was the cancer was not the DNA of that geranium. And so the geranium was basically isolating it from itself. So after about 45 days, they dried up, and you could just take your finger and flip it, just hit it with your finger, and it would just shatter and fall away. The plant was flourishing more so than the ones that were not in the test. In fact, the ones that were not in the test, they were dying because the cancer was starving it for food. And so it was basically killing the plant, whereas the ones that were exposed were growing profusely. And that's how he first tested it and said, there's something to this. And he started working with that. But anyway, he eventually used it in hospitals, and for one reason or the other, I'm not going to expound on that. The hospital system said, no, get it out of here. We don't want it. So anyway, over the years, it's been duplicated by several people, I'm sure. Some of the more detailed technical information that you might be wanting to know is that in 1932, there was a Dr. Otto Warburg who discovered that the body, every cell in your body is like a little battery, a rechargeable battery. And the nutrition that you eat and whatever charges those batteries in your body, cells in your body, and it's the DNA. But each cell has its own voltage, and he was able to figure out what that voltage was. And just to give you some numbers, he discovered that a healthy cell in a healthy person was between 70 and 90 millivolts. And then if that cell started getting chronically ill, if a person had a chronic cough or something, he would check those cells and they were down around 50 millivolts, 50. And then when a person was diagnosed with cancer, he noticed those cells were down about 15 millivolts. And so the cells didn't have enough energy to correct itself and to save itself, and the cancer would take over. So he figured out, well, Lakowski figured out that if he energized a person's body with the multi-wave oscillator, it uses high voltage and random frequencies to generate the healing aspect. But anyway, as you would expose cells to these multiple frequencies that were being generated by this chair, he noticed that people's energy would raise. And if you raise the energy, everything is going to get raised. So if you have, if it has something like, let's say the word cancer, the cancer is going to grow too. But over a period of time, he figured out that things like cancer and different things would be starved out by the cells, because the cells were now back up to a higher level and were able to correct themselves. And so it would help the cells, the DNA of the person, to continue to thrive and to live. So that's kind of the basis of it. Where do I go from there? What is it? It's a high voltage transformer that has a spark gap, which gives it random noise. When I say random noise, if you remember on an old AM radio on your car, and you be driving down the road and you hear that buzzing as you speed up and slow down, that's the noise that it is putting out. But it's a constant changing of frequencies, because the spark gap length is going to change infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not quite infinitely, but within reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chair itself has coils built into in behind the antennas, and those antennas are hooked up to the output of the coil, and so it radiates to those multiple antennas. And the antennas are a series of rings that starts out about 1 inch in diameter, then
Mm-hmm.
2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12 inches in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not complete circles. The antennas on the circuit board are about 340 degrees in diameter,
Mm-hmm.
around it, not 360. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make contact. So that's an antenna within itself. And when you radiate to the antennas, each antenna has its own resonant frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and is again based on the golden ratio, which the
Mm-hmm.
entire Earth is based on a golden ratio.
And just go over the golden ratio real quick for those that may not be familiar.
Golden ratio is like a conch shell. If you look at a conch shell anywhere in the world, they're all basically the same.
Right.
And so they use God made a certain set of numbers. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but percentages. But if you look at the golden ratio, it's the God's way of making like a conch shell. And they're all basically the same because they all work off the golden ratio.
Would it be
Can't
like
give you a better explanation.
would it be like the concept of fractals, that you're going to have the same ratio on a macro level as it would be on a micro level?
It will be, yes.
Okay.
The golden ratio is it's a ratio one to the other, and it's continuous stepping. I'm trying to find a picture of it so I can give you a better description of what the antenna looks like. I could show you over here beside of me. I've got one sitting here, and yeah, it's right now. I should have had this pulled out, I guess, but I didn't.
No, actually, you know what?
There
Check this out. I could share the screen here, and
Okay.
I can show a golden ratio.
Okay, yeah, there you go. That's the golden ratio. And if you work on that principle, that's what this whole system is based around, the golden ratio. And so the antenna is designed to give you that golden ratio of frequencies. And it covers all the different frequencies that your body resonates at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to keep looking over here. But anyway, I'm just saying that the golden ratio is what the antennas are based around. They're designed around. So that each antenna. Go ahead.
So these antennas are emitting these frequencies.
Yes.
With each of these antennas in this golden ratio that's spiraling out, that the person is being exposed to.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. I get it.
Well, let me. Can I share my screen? I'll
yeah,
show
sure.
you the chair.
Hold on a second here.
I'll turn around here so I can get it on the screen.
Okay.
And if you see the antennas there,
Mm-hmm.
I know where my finger's at.
Yep.
I've never done this before. Anyway,
Okay.
you can see there's multiple rings on the antennas, and there's one on each side. If you look over the other side, there's another antenna on the other side of the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And then around behind the chair, well, there's a timer right here for setting the amount of time that you are exposed to it or in the chair.
Okay.
On the back side of it, there's the transformer back there and spark gap in here. And
Okay.
we use a light bulb for power regulation. But that's basically, that's the Multiwave Oscillator right there.
And that plugs into a regular outlet,
Yes.
and then
Okay.
all you do is
There it is.
turning that on. So now it's running, and it's
Yes.
emitting these frequencies through this. The multi-wave oscillator is emitting these frequencies through those antennas for anything within. Now I remember us speaking the other day. Was it 6 foot, 10 foot in diameter?
It's it varies with the power of that light bulb. The light bulb sets the power out. And I've got a handheld thing that you just use for testing voltage. Get these at Lowe's or anywhere like that. But as I get closer to it, you see it starts coming on. And so that field is out here. That's where the field is right there.
Okay.
As I go around the chair, you know, it's all over the chair. It's all around it. I go behind it, back there. I go in front of it, it's in front of it. So it's just a ball of energy. And when a person is sitting in the chair, they're exposed to that energy, and that's what causes the amount of, I guess, healing energy, if you will, and it will radiate into, you know, the person's body, and every cell in the body will be energized to heal itself. You know, our bodies are made to heal themselves. From God did that. You know, he made a body that can fix its own self if you let it. But you gotta get rid of what's causing the problems, and then give it the energy it needs to build itself back up. And that's what the chair does. And that energy coming off of it is what helps you heal yourself.
Okay. How is the energy coming off of the chair the same or different than when they talk about being exposed to EMFs, Wi-Fi and cell towers and power lines and things like that? When we're exposed to those things, they say it can have a negative effect on the physical body. How does the multi-wave oscillator, how is that different than?
Well, okay, what you're talking about with the microwaves and the cell towers and all of this stuff, you're talking about gigahertz. And if you stop and think about a radio, if you just take a FM radio, you turn it on, and you turn that dial and you find a station, you hear one station. You don't hear all of the stations. You just hear one station.
Got it.
All right. That's a single station, not multiple.
Okay.
Well, okay. And it's up in the, you know, megahertz frequencies and all that. So it's way above what your cells in your body are resonating at. If you think, I think of DNA as being a spring, like a slinky. You remember the old slinky?
Yep.
Okay.
I do.
And you take a slinky and you bob it up and down, and it'll bob up and down at a certain frequency, and it likes that frequency, you know. But if you start clipping clothespins on it, it loses its ability to resonate at that frequency. And that's what I think of when I think of the parasites and different things that affect the body. I don't have scientific proof of that, but I'm saying that's what I think of. It's the way I can understand it in my mind. But as you expose yourself to something like a multiwave oscillator, it causes that slinky, if you will, that spring, to oscillate at its resonant frequency. And when you can do that, it starts casting off those things that are changing its frequency. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. And so it doesn't matter if you've got, you know, one thing wrong or another thing wrong, or, it is not meant for one specific purpose. There's other equipment that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
This one is basically to bring your entire system level voltage up. As I was saying earlier about Dr. Otto Warburg, he discovered that a healthy cell is between 70 and 90 millivolts.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's running at 50, you're going to have like a chronic cough or chronically ill about something, a knee pain or whatever. But if you can bring that energy up in that area of the body, then it's going to correct itself. It's going to heal itself.
Got it. So
is the way I see it.
Yeah, I think of it like topping off the batteries, like what an alternator does in your car. That if you charge it, the battery, if you're just running off the battery, it's going to deplete and then the car will die. But
that's right.
You start the engine and it runs the alternator that charges the battery, which allows the car to run off the battery.
Right.
So if we could do this for ourselves, we could use this multi-wave oscillator in a way to help the body feel more energized, more topped off, if you will, as far as energy goes. And then the range of the 70, 90 millivolts will always keep it in a level that would allow the body to be healthy.
Right. And see, in today's world, our food doesn't have the nutrition that they had, 50 or 100 years ago. The soil is depleted of its minerals and the stuff that we need for our bodies to heal itself. And I was reading another book, Healing is Voltage. And it was saying that some of these things like granola oil, if you cook with granola oil, that the oil was never meant for human consumption, and it will actually go onto the cells, and it'll put a coating around the cells. And so then the cell calls for nutrition, and it sends glucose and whatever to the cell to try to feed it. But the cell is encapsulated in this plastic material, and it can't get in. It can't get into the cell. So the cell keeps calling for more food, more nourishment, and it can't get it. That's because we're using granola oil and stuff that our body can't process. And a lot of these processed foods, that's the problem with processed foods, is they use stuff that will create a plastic-like film around our cells. And so we eat and it can't get nourishment, so it calls for more nourishment, and it tells us we need to eat more. And so this world has become a country and a world of obese people because they can't process the food. Well, that's a sidetrack. I didn't mean to go there.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
But it's all tied together. And but the body is electric, and we have to keep that electric system up. And if our cells start losing energy for whatever the reason, then if we can't get enough food to get nourishment, and we can't get it from the fruits and vegetables and from the stuff you get from the grocery store or whatever, you're going to be constantly hungry and eat more food. And when you eat more food, it gets turned into fat stored in fat cells. So I said all that to say that we have to, not only do we need to use the oscillator when we have to, but we have to look at our diets and see if we can make ourselves more fit, I guess is the right word, and get away from some of these foods that we can't get any nourishment from.
Certainly. And the multi-wave oscillator is a way of supporting the energy in our body that will allow us to become healthier and for our nervous system or neurology, our body to be able to heal itself.
Yes, 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 for sure.
Cool.
So,
well, is there anything else? Because this is, I'm kind of at the edge of my knowledge and understanding of this machine, and I'm all about being like the, testing myself and experimenting with this to kind of give my own experience of it. And this machine that you've built for the foundation is something that we're going to begin offering here in Western North Carolina, Weaverville, North Carolina, for those that are interested in experiencing this for themselves to try it out.
let me say this too. When I say it gives you energy, I've experienced multiple times of a person coming in, and they're normal, functioning. They go and do what they do, and all that stuff. And they'll come in and sit down in the chair, and they'll drink a cup of coffee or read a book or whatever. Let it run for 15 minutes, and they'll get up and say, "I really didn't feel anything." And then they go off, and the next morning they get up and they're like, "Oh, I think I've had too much caffeine, and I think we need to do blah 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 blah." It's comical to watch, and they'll say, "Yeah, I've had too much caffeine." And you know how people get when they get hyper,
Sure.
and they seem to be hyper, and they want to attribute to something, and they say, "Well, must have drank too much coffee," when actually what happened is they have energy that was stored up in their cells from the multiwave oscillator. And I did an experiment one time, and this one person sat down in it and got it, 15 minutes later, says, "I didn't feel anything, no big deal. I'll go on about my business, and, whatever." And they went to bed. Next morning, got up, started washing dishes and cleaning floors and, all the stuff that they normally don't feel like doing. Then he went, got dressed and went to work, and came home that evening. They were, still, getting around pretty good. The next morning, they didn't set it in again. The next morning, they got up and they were doing stuff. They weren't doing quite as much, but, they did a few other things that they normally don't do. But it wasn't like the first morning. And then the third morning, they were back to their same feeling of, I'm lethargic, maybe. But they sit in the oscillator chair again, and it repeated. They were able to go and do things. I think my system was slowing down or something. But anyway, I've seen that several times with people. When they sit in the oscillator, it gives them more energy than what they're used to. And so they want to attribute to something, but they don't know what it is. And that's just exactly what it does.
Huh. So this is something that someone who would experience this would want to kind of maybe track their baseline of their energy that they normally have, and then they get into the chair, experience it, and then see how their energy levels may be higher or different than what it was the previous couple of days.
Yeah, that's true. And another side issue that I've noticed with this oscillator, this multiwave oscillator, is that we've always talked about we have an aura. You have an aura around your body.
Yes.
All this. Well, I have a way using the same device that I can tell you how big your aura is. And it was interesting the other day. One person sat down and they'd never said it before, and they checked their aura. It was probably that far out, maybe a little bit bigger, but inches. And so they sat in the chair and they didn't feel anything, out of the ordinary. But then after a period of time, the next day they said it again. And this time they checked it again, and it was out maybe 8 inches. And the next day it was even out further. So, as you sit in this oscillator chair and you start building up your energy, your aura gets bigger. You
Mhm.
have a bigger field around you.
Mm. So it's like a cumulative effect,
Yes,
in
it
the
is.
body as you, it's essentially, it sounds like it's teaching the nervous system how to um, produce its own energy, or how to, be stronger.
It's storing up the energy. I mean, your
Okay.
body, as you eat food, it gives it energy. But if you can't get the energy from food, it's got to come from somewhere. And so
Right.
if this gives it to you, it boosts all of your energy throughout your
Hmm.
entire body, from your head to your toe,
Hmm.
you know. Um, and one other aspect that people will experience when they sit in it, I've had people sit in it that had surgery and had a scar of some
Hmm.
sort.
Hmm.
And so they had a scar, and that scar tissue is different from your skin.
Yes.
And I discovered that they would sit in it, and within just a few moments, they would say, "Oh, my scar is itching," and they would, start scratching it. And they said, "Why is that?" I said, "Well, your skin is elastic. It's stretchable, and
Hmm.
it stretches, and so your skin is actually moving as this thing is being operated.
Hmm.
But that scar is thicker, and it can't move, it can't stretch. And so the difference between the scar and your normal skin is causing it to feel like it's itching.
Hmm.
And I found that very fascinating.
Well, that's what will happen. Scars will itch when they're healing. Like
Well, so this could be an old scar. I mean, it could be one from 20 years ago, and the scar is going to remain, more dense than your skin. And if you
Mhm.
look at your skin, if you just take your skin and just move it back and forth, you can see it
Sure,
stretches.
sure,
Scar doesn't stretch.
right.
So the area around that scar will itch because the
Mhm.
skin is moving, the scar is not. And
Uh-huh.
so it gives it that feeling of stretching.
Mhm.
So anyway, it's a little side issue I've noticed. There's a lot of little things that you can pick up about, these kinds of things, but um, by and large, the Multiwave Oscillator is a device that will give you energy.
Mhm.
And if you have an illness, that's because that part of your body has lost energy in that area. And the Multiwave Oscillator doesn't know, you know, I'm focusing on one thing or another thing or whatever. It's not focusing on the head or the legs or whatever.
Mhm.
It's all over. You're in a
Yeah.
ball of energy,
Mhm.
and you're going to get recharged. Just like these cell phones, you can lay it on this charging pad. Well, it's
Mhm.
the same kind of thing. It's a non-contact charging system.
Mhm.
That's the only way I can really explain it.
No, that's okay. We'll include links there. You were saying that there is lots of information on multi-wave
Oh yeah,
oscillators on the internet. So
yes.
we'll include some links for more research and study on that in the description of this. And
Okay.
below this video, we'll have a link where those that are interested in booking an appointment to come in and experience this can do so as well.
Okay. What else?
Uh,
Do you have
I
any other questions?
I'm I'm at a place where the questions will come after I sit in it and experience it for a period of time, because
Well, come on over.
we'll get that all taken care of, and as I experience that, then it's like then the questions come, because I'm like,
Okay.
oh well, this felt like this and this felt like that, but we
But honestly, you may not feel anything. You may not feel a thing.
true. However, that we're looking at some sort of change or some sort of difference as a result of being in this energy field.
Right. Right. Well, that's the objective.
Well,
Okay.
cool. Well, Randy, I thank you so much for your time. your expertise and sharing with on the podcast here. This has been fantastic. And we're going to get those things set up here, and we'll let some people experience it. We'll get some feedback from it, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, once again, Randy, thank you so much. This is Bill Paravano, the Knee Pain Guru, on behalf of the Comella Foundation and the Pain Education Podcast. Appreciating you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning into this week's segment of the Pain Education Corner. Join us next week for another conversation on natural healing methods to eliminate pain. To learn more about the work we do at the Comella Foundation, please visit our website at the Comella, Comella Foundation.org.